Bickley and Marotta. Bickley and Marotta Mornings. Arizona Sports. The local sports leader. Bickley Blast.
It wasn't the 33 rushing yards that made Kyler Murray's return so momentous. It was the three magic words. It was the three words he uttered in the post-game press conference when asked about the miscommunication with Trey McBride that resulted in a costly interception. He said, and I quote, "It's my fault." Those three words completed a promising victory and a great juxtaposition on Sunday where Murray's athleticism was an unexpected return to normal, almost like nothing ever went snap in his knee, and in the game's defining play, he covered 68 yards on a scramble that led to a 13-yard gain, running faster than he has in years, and nobody expected that. But it was also a game that proved Murray's newfound maturity and leadership are actually very real and not just hopeful talking points. He was in total control of his emotions, which is saying something given that Sunday represented the culmination of an 11-month journey back from serious injury. And then, without hesitation, he did what all real franchise quarterbacks do. He took the blame. He covered for a teammate. He pointed the finger at himself, and in doing so, he ushered in the second act of his career and a new beginning for the rest of us. All right, today's Bickley Blast brought to you by my great friends at Chapman BMW who make luxury attainable. Find them online at chapmanbmw.com.
That's what is miscommunication, something we haven't worked. Cover two, the middle of the field's vacated. It was, I felt like he could have sat down, but that's not something that we had practiced or worked on. So he was right to keep running, so my fault. It's my fault.
My fault. It's my fault. Came out easy, not forced, not like somebody, hey, say it was your fault. It'll help you out. You know what I mean? And so that's the kind of stuff that really led me to feel really good about this. A couple days ago when Kyler talked about he was training himself to be emotionless, and I'm like, okay, this is a guy that's kind of getting his arms around what this is and how he has to approach it. And he did it, Vinny. That was more impressive than anything. And what were those stats you had and how fast he was running on that scramble?
20.17 miles per hour, which was his fastest clocked time by next-gen stats since 2021, late in the 2021 season. So that was pre-injury, obviously.
Wow. Yeah.
He covered almost 70 yards of ground on that scramble.
That's wild.
On a 13-yard gain.
Isn't it nuts?
And his scrambles look different than other people like Lamar Jackson, for example, because of the way Kyler runs.
Yeah.
Like as you always say, the whoop, 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 whoop. Mm-hmm. It just feels more like frantic.
It does.
And quicker.
Because he's not a strider. He's a smaller guy. The steps are a lot shorter, so the legs are moving a lot faster, and it does look frantic. That's a great way to put it. But, man, again, another tremendous play. Here was Jonathan Gannon again talking about Kyler's poise after the game.
That's how he is. Yeah, that's how he is. He doesn't ride the emotional roller coaster, which I love. I try not to. I'm probably a little more emotional than he is. He believes that if you give him the ball, he's going to win the game. So there it is.
I got a kick out of that quote.
Yeah.
That Jonathan Gannon saying he probably rides the emotional roller coaster less than I do.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. I haven't seen anything resembling an emotional roller coaster with Jonathan Gannon. I mean, go back to the first game when they beat the Cowboys. He was very, very against even celebrating that win, just kind of, glazed over it. Hopefully there's a lot more. Yesterday, the camera was on him. Anytime the camera fixes itself on Jonathan Gannon during the game, could be going well, could be going bad. He's got the same demeanor, arms crossed on his chest, listening, not a whole lot of talking. Mm-hmm. After Prater made the field goal yesterday, the cameras went to Jonathan Gannon, didn't even pump a fist, watched it go through the uprights, and immediately ran to midfield to meet Arthur Smith for a post-game handshake.
Listen, I admire it.
I do too.
I received a text from somebody yesterday about midway through the game. Won't this Gannon guy do something more than have his arms crossed? Won't he show some fire? No. This is what he is doing, and I think it's very smart that he's doing this. The last guy was out of his mind in terms of time out! I'm sorry. But listen, Jonathan Gannon, what I admire is this. Like Cliff Kingsbury, Jonathan Gannon knew and probably still does know that, okay, maybe this wasn't fair. Maybe I'm a little too young for this. Maybe this wasn't exactly the, prototypical way you get a head coaching job in the NFL, right? But I think he really, and he's got a quote that says something to the extent of, this is my one shot. I know that this is my one shot, and I've got to do this the right way. I've got to do it my way. And so he's created what I think is a persona, and that is exactly that. No reaction. And I think it's a smart thing to do.
Now, as this season goes on, it'll be interesting to see how he figures out how to utilize Kyler and all his gifts, which is something that Cliff Kingsbury never really did. We talked about so much that every spectacular play Kyler made was improvisational, was when a play broke down. It wasn't something that was designed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was a little bit yesterday too. But as the season goes on and they get comfortable with each other and the system.
That's not his job. That's Drew Petzing's job. Jonathan Gannon Jonathan Gannon is not involved in offensive
I mean
schematics.
the Jonathan Gannon coaching staff.
Okay,
this
the
new
regime.
staff.
Got it,
yeah,
okay.
the new regime. Yeah.
All right.
But to that point, there's a difference between honing and relying on. Cliff Kingsbury's entire offense relied on Kyler Murray's gifts.
Yeah.
That's when they had success. Is what Kyler was being superhuman. There was nothing of substance in terms of how that offense was structured.
No.
For any quarterback to succeed that didn't have those gifts. We found that out.
Well, and like I said yesterday in covering, or not yesterday, like I said earlier about yesterday, Kyler Murray's interception was a bad moment in the game for him. I was charting, as was most people, the amount of shotgun versus under center. And after a while, I just stopped because it was 85% shotgun. And you realized, okay, that's just the way it's going to be because that's how comfortable he is. Well, the times under center, you could tell they were building up to the big play action reveal. And that was the play, and it didn't work. And it didn't work for who knows whatever reasons, but whatever. My point
it was Kyler's fault.
Right, it's my fault. Right, that's exactly whose fault it is, Vinny. That's exactly whose fault it is. The guy who's making $230 million, your fault.
Yes. On the under center thing, though, it was also interesting that they twice brought in Clayton Tune for the tush push move instead of having Kyler.
And I'm sure Kyler's not a fan of that because again, you're giving up your numbers, and you're giving up your touchdowns, and it's not really fair. But at the same time, it's smart. You don't want him at the bottom of that.
But even if there wasn't any injury involved, this tush-push play becomes in vogue in the NFL. Are you going to? I mean, are the Carolina Panthers? I haven't watched a lot of Panthers football. I'm not that big of a glutton. Are the Panthers going to rely on Bryce Young to push the pile in a tush-push play? He's smaller in stature than Kyler Murray is. I just think there's a physics element to it.
Yeah.
That extra 20, 30 pounds makes a difference.
It does make a difference.
And it worked
like
both
that.
times.
It does make a difference. And then after a while, Clayton Tune's going to be like, really, that's all I am? A piñata for you people?
You know who they need to get back? You know who's perfect for the tush-push play?
It's Chris
Streveler.
The leveler.
What's he doing?
Just looking at that USFL, XFL.
Text your thoughts to the FanDuel text line at 620-620 right now. Of course, that's always open.